journey starts with an intention. So how would you like to grow and mature in your relationship to God?
Yeah, so there's a reason why you're here, right? Make the time, make the effort to be here or to be on Zoom, right? There's a longing, there's always a longing in to grow deeper in our relationship with God, right? So in your particular part of the journey, how would you like to grow, right? What's calling you right now in your journey? We're actually going to have you turn towards someone and we're going to put you in a breakout diet rooms over there on Zoom, and you're going to have like 2.5 minutes to share about your relationship, your spiritual journey. Where's that at right now? How would you like to grow?
So just take a moment, maybe before you turn to that part, and just take a moment to consider that for yourself. How would you like to grow in your relationship with God during these 4 weeks? What would that look like? If you've got a notebook, you may want to scribble that, or just sit with that for 60 seconds. Say, how would I like to grow in my relationship with God? I just really gave myself permission to be honest. I want to feel you, God. I want to be closer. I want to stop fighting. I want to be more loving to my family. I want to be more devotional. I want to cry for the first time in 20 years. I want to stop crying for the first time in 20 years. What is it for you? Take a moment.
Or maybe I would like to discover the beauty of silence. For me, that was for a long time my prayer, my intention. I'm like, everybody's talking about it, but I don't know what they're talking about. And I can feel that there's something beautiful about stillness. So maybe it's that, right? But what is contemplation? And experience that, right? So whatever that is for you. So you're going to turn towards a partner, or you're going to be partnered up in a breakout room, and so there's going to be someone sharing first, and then there's someone sharing second, and the person, when you're listening, you can listen in a contemplative way, right? We call that active listening. It's like you're listening to really receive the other person, not to think about what does that mean about me. That's how we usually listen, right? And when can I get my word in? And when can I make a comment? What do I think about what the person says? It's just like to really, like as if you're traveling into like a foreign country, and this is your brother, this is your sister in Christ, right? Who is her own journey, his own journey to God, right? And to be really curious about how is that for you, and how would you like to grow? So to really listen with your whole being and not saying a word, right? That's already the start of contemplation, right? So that it's you're a safe space for this brother of yours, this sister of yours to share. Yeah? And you have about 2.5 minutes, and then we're going to flip around. Right? So
remember, active listening is silent. Just listening, not advice giving. Right? Just listening. So let's invite you to Father and Jim to be partners, and just keep going around and turn to the person next to you, whether you know them or you don't. Just turn your chair a bit to that person so they get some of your attention. And those of you at home, Father's going to put you into a breakout. And don't start yet, just partner up with your person. Okay, right? And then decide between the two of you, don't start sharing yet. Between the two of you, who's A and who's B? A is for awesome and B is for brilliant. Who's A and who's B? So, okay. And hold on, wait, hold on. We're gonna move into sharing from a contemplative place, right? So those of you listening, just listen in silence. A's who are sharing first, raise your hand. You're an A, you're sharing first. Okay, so for these 2 minutes, you're sharing, your partner is just listening. Okay. Ready, A's, go.
Just keep going, keep sharing, and ask what you would like in relationship with God. It's still A's turn, just keep sharing. And partner B, you're sharing, partner A, listening, just listening. Remember, if you're listening, you're just listening, no commenting, no questioning, just listening. And bring that to completion. And just thank your partner for listening. To truly listen to someone is something we rarely ever do. Right? And to truly be heard from someone who's just getting us without commenting, without judging, without putting their 2 cents in there, is also pretty rare. It's a gift, it's a real gift of contemplation, actually. And we just, because we don't know each other, we just like to hear, if you could sum it all up in one word, right? So if your intention, the way that you want to grow in your relationship with God, if you could say that in one word, because we don't have time to hear everybody. We'd like to hear just your name and your one word, and we're just going to go around. Yeah.
So I'll give some examples. Compassion, patience, deepening, whatever, 1,000 different things. What is it for you? So we could ask you your name and your one word that you would like to grow in with God. Let's start with the folks on Zoom. Can we do that? So if you could unmute yourself, just in your own popcorn style, whenever you feel inspired, just say your name and your one word. Then we can start.
Virginia, innocence.
Thank you.
Susan, connection. Trust.
Trust. Thank you. Anyone else there? I don't know all your names and I can't see all your names.
Anne and growth.
What was it, Anne?
Growth.
Growth. Thank you.
Kevin, and I have 5. My Lord and my God.
My Lord and my God. Thank you. Anyone else? Just don't forget to unmute yourself. I'd love to hear your word. Okay. So let's transition to our folks here. Can we start with you? You say your name and your word, and we'll just go around. And I'll repeat it so everyone there can hear it.
Victoria, my word is peaceful.
Peaceful.
Jane, and my word is light.
Light.
Lorianne, gratitude.
Gratitude.
Dina, knowledge is a word that means just knowing.
Knowing. Hopeful.
Dick, unity.
Unity.
And trust.
Trust.
Maureen, peace.
Peace.
Helen, clarity.
Clarity.
Linda, openness.
Openness.
Thomas, wisdom.
Wisdom.
Rebecca, forgiveness.
Forgiveness.
Christine, intimacy.
Intimacy.
Jacqueline, clarity. Mary, surrender.
Surrender.
Deb, growth.
Jim, acquiescence.
Acquiescence.
Helen, safety.
Safety.
Jim, obedience.
Obedience.
Roger, listening.
Listening. Okay, thank you. Yeah. Okay, so we're going to hold those intentions for each other and for ourselves. And we'll move into describing what our centering prayer is going to look like, and then we'll move into practicing it this evening. So there are 3 stages to centering prayer. A few moments of preparation, a silent period, and then a short period of integration. And that's the rhythm, whether it's 5 minutes or 20 or longer. It will be short tonight. So the preparation for centering prayer is always, we take a few moments to remind ourselves we are forever and always in the presence of God. And I'm just describing it now, you don't have to do anything. We take that moment to transition from whatever's gone before to moving into this space where we reclaim our intention. We sit with our intention, as Britta says, Father Francis said, to set aside this time, come, whatever. This is the time I give you, God. And we orient our heart and our mind and our bodies to God. So that transition period is I turn my heart towards God, remember why I'm doing what I'm doing, and all the things I could have been doing, this is what I'm choosing to do now. And our mind, think on God, we think, bring our minds into useful purpose to orient ourselves to God. And then we bring our bodies to God, and that's why there is a posture, a prayer posture. And the basic of a prayer posture is you want a straight spine. So, and this is like these chairs. No chairs are actually very good for this. Actually, sitting is a pretty, not the best way, but you may, over the course of tonight or weeks to come, if you like, you can sit on the floor, you can sit on a pillow, you can sit. In some monasteries I've been to, people actually do it kneeling on a little kneeling bench. Whatever posture for you creates a sense of openness and comfort, but not sleepiness. So it's not, it's I'm awake, I'm aware, and I sit with the dignity of a human being. I sit with the dignity God gave me. Then we'll move into a silent period. And in the silent period, we turn our intention, we create our intention in our preparation to say, I'm intending to open myself to surrender to the action and will of God. That is the whole purpose of centering prayer, to say, and my intention is to surrender myself to the action and will of God. For these 5 minutes, nothing is more important. No matter what 1,000 thoughts come roaring into my mind, I surrender, God, to this intention of opening to your will. And as Britta said, many of our beautiful Christian prayers are a prayer of attention. I place my attention on the image of God. I place my attention on the Eucharist. I place my attention on being penitent before confession. This is different in that it's not a prayer of attention, it's a prayer of intention. And in the silent period, I simply sit in silence with that intention. And I introduce what we call a sacred word. And the sacred word is a word that comes to me that I use to represent that intention. So in a moment, we'll invite you for tonight's centering prayer just to let a sacred word bubble up. It's usually a 1 or 2 syllable word. It could be God, it could be Jesus, it could be peace, it could be love. Just trust what comes up. This is not a mantra. And it's not a word that's sacred in and of itself. It doesn't have to be a holy word. The purpose of the word is to represent your intention so that during that silence, when anything distracts you, and who here anticipates you may be distracted during the time of silence? If anything distracts you, you silently say your word to bring you back to your intention. So I'm sitting and all of a sudden I think, did I leave the car running? Say my word. Or I'm thinking, Mike, I wasn't a very good person today. Say my word.
So I just want to make a little distinction between thinking something and engaging in thought. Yeah, so the mind thinks like the heart beats. That's what the mind is doing. It thinks, it throws out thoughts, right? So there's no, if your mind is doing that, then that's what your mind is doing what it's meant to do. When we're saying the word is when we're noticing that we're engaging with it. And you can think of this like, it's almost like if you imagine a river, and on the surface of the river is all these boats that are, racing around. That's how your thoughts, right? You want to place yourself deeper at the ocean, at the riverbed, right? And you're just looking up and you're seeing them, and they're totally fine. When you're using the words, when you're floating up to the surface and you get on one of those boats, right? And you're like, did I leave the car? Oh my God, I always leave the car on. What a loser I am. That was just like my mom told me. And that, you just keep going on a tangent on that boat, right? So the word is like, oh yeah, so let's say the word is yes, yes, and yes. And then the word is helping you plop back down to the river bed where you can see them, and they just kind of are there. But it doesn't matter that they're there, because you're here in the bottom of the river bed. Yeah? So the word you only use when you notice that you're engaged with thoughts, when you're thinking about thoughts. Do you see the difference between that thoughts are just going on? I'm like totally fascinated with these thoughts. I'm going on the boat, right? So the word is helping you getting off the boat again and go to the river, sort of like where God is waiting in a deeper place. Yeah?
So we'll do that for a few moments, and we will have a period of integration, a short period of integration out of the prayer time that brings us back and allows us to bring the fruit of our centering prayer into our life. And just one thing that Greta will be sharing, as Father Keating says, whether I say that word once during these 5 minutes or 1,000 times, doesn't matter. If I find myself silently saying the word 1,000 times, well, he says it's 1,000 times I have an opportunity to return to God and say, yes, God, I choose you. I choose you more than whatever else is going on. I choose you. So don't criticize yourself. Don't, no self-critique. Even that is a way of engaging with something other than God. So that's our practice. Are there any questions about that before we give it a go? Okay, and we will have a little Q&A at the very end this evening.
I just wanted to say, so we're going to build up to 20 minutes, but today we're only going to do 5. So just to kind of get feet in the water. Right? So, so there will be a 5-minute where I'm not talking, right? So and it's all good. Just hang in there, right? Just stay with your intention to surrender, right? And then I'm going to talk you out of it, like into that third stage. Yeah? So let's start by just finding this comfortable posture, which is where your spine is straight and relaxed. And just allowing your eyes to close, and let that be a visible sign of them going inside and turning toward that indwelling presence of God. Just allow a sense to come to you of your own sense of God, who or what God is for you right now. It could be a visual, and that visual could be either clear or it could be vague. Or it could just be a felt sense of opening to the source of life. Your life. The source of it all. Just allow yourself before this presence of God to just say, yes, here I am, Lord. This is me. And I give you this time. To be available to your presence and action within me. And rather than thinking about God, just allow a word to come to you. A one or two syllable simple word that expresses your consent. Let it be an interior word, whisper. This will be a sacred word for this period of centering prayer. As you allow your body to stay upright, easy flow of breath in and out, and a natural alertness in the body. And shoulders are back and down. The head is sitting straight. And allowing your body posture to express this availability. I am here. Comfortable. And then silently introduce the sacred word. Let it float on the surface of your mind. A simple word that expresses your openness to God. And there will be other thoughts present. Images, reflections, worries, judgments, plans, memories. And whenever you think about a thought, whenever you engage with a thought, just ever so gently returning to your sacred word. Do not be discouraged about thoughts. Thoughts are inevitable. Just gently return to your sacred word when you get caught up in a thought train. Receive the mind of Christ, the life of God in these next minutes of silence. So be it. Let it be. Just keeping your eyes closed for a few more moments. Let go of returning to your sacred word. And rest your mind and heart for a moment. And then reflect for a moment and identify an intention or prayer words that you might have for someone in need, someone in your life that you know is in need, is experiencing some form of suffering. And let the words of this prayer flow easily through your mind. And just offering the fruit of this short time of silence to this brother, to this sister who's in need. And let this prayer assist you in being united with the needs of other people. United with your brothers and sisters in God, in our common shared humanity. Including the brothers and sisters that are here with you, exploring the beauty of contemplation. And just one moment before we go back into, doing, just allowing your eyes to be receptive. And just checking out your environment, the colors, the shapes, and receiving everything we see is a gift from God, including the other human beings here. And like everything is, there's a way to see through contemplative eyes, to see from the silence. The world looks different that way.
That's our first time together practicing centering prayer. And we want to spend a couple minutes here, just opening up for any observations or questions about the process, because our invitation is going to be to practice this every day for 5 minutes. Let me just say a couple things. Centering prayer is a cultivation. So 5 minutes every day is better than an hour and a half on Saturdays. It's a daily practice. We Catholics are really good at practices. This thing about practicing our faith. This is where you can practice your faith. So I invite you to take it up daily, preferably in the morning, for 5 minutes. And I think this recording will be available, right? So you could just track right along with what we just did. And one other thing that I love that Father Keating says is that the fruits, and this is a real spiritual stretch, right? The fruits of centering prayer are not during the centering prayer period. They're in your life. That's where the fruit of centering prayer is. Not now, but as we cultivate it. Of course, that's tough for us because I want it now. He says that's not where it shows up. And I can attest to this is true. Patience, openness, contemplative perspective. Seeing sometimes, I hope, through the eyes of God. These are things we can cultivate. So, in one sense, we don't talk too much about centering prayer because just do it. But if there are any questions, clarifications about the process, or anything we've said tonight, this is a wonderful time. If you have any questions or clarifications that we can offer about this. Anyone at home too, feel free to raise a hand. Anything you want to share or ask?
You mentioned we should be doing this in the morning. Is there a place that we should be doing, like the same place over and over again, or does it make any difference?
I personally find that routine helps. So if you have a place at home that's your special sacred place, your quiet place, so I would think that's a really good idea to have the same place every day. If you happen to come to daily mass, which I'm sure Father would appreciate, spending 5 minutes after mass in silence. Well, you have a chapel here, Blessed Sacrament Chapel right here. It's also a good one. But routine. What else? Questions, observations,
Susan,
clarifications?
you're muted.
Susan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd like to share what happened to me during this time. It's like I had a vision that God took me in his arms. I put my head on his chest and he said, "You are home."
Hmm. So that's beautiful.
It was, thank you.
What's that?
I said, yes, it definitely was.
It is.
Amazing.
Now, I want to give you what Father Keating would say about what to do with that vision. Let it go. This is one of the tools that we have to do about centering prayer. In fact, he says, if the Virgin Mary shows up to me in the middle of my centering prayer, I let her go. Now, what does he mean by that? We tend to identify with our thoughts. And so we want to move under the thoughts, even the most beautiful. So if you have the gift of receiving, Susan, a moment of feeling God's grace, don't cling to it. And the way we don't cling to it is I say the word and I let it go.
Mhm.
This may feel challenging or counterintuitive, but it is the core of centering prayer. And I think of the woman clinging to Jesus, right? And Jesus says, let go, right? So if you have any thought, even a positive or beautiful one, you can celebrate it and let it go.
Mhm.
Does that make sense?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Make sure I understand it, so that it's intended to, we set the intention, or we say if it's surrender to the will of God, or whatever, and then you just try not to think of anything.
No. You don't try not to think of anything. You don't attach yourself to your
Yes,
thoughts.
you can serve a thought, but then you just, your goal is to have it.
Yes, and we can talk more about this in coming weeks, but one of the principles here is that the beautiful theological principle in our Catholic faith that what is unknown is greater than what is known. So what we can say about God, grace, our entire relationship, even what's true, the chasm is even greater. And there's this quality of our relationship to God, which is surrendering into the unknown, the darkness, and the quality of grace that comes through not identifying, but releasing. Does that make sense? So it's allowing, if a thought comes, even a beautiful thought, or a distracting thought, I say my sacred word as my consent to the action of grace. This is where centering prayer can get challenging.
So trying not to think. What do you think you're going to do when you try not to think? Think.
So just
Right.
focus on the breathing.
Right? It's like, it's a total recipe for attachment to thoughts, right? Because the one that's trying, right, is the thinker. And so it's like, and this is really not that as a paradox in a way that it's like, we can't make letting go happen. We can't make contemplation happen either. We can't say, I am now contemplating. Can't do it. We can only kind of put ourselves in a disposition of contemplation, and then we need to be taken, right? That's not something we can make happen. Otherwise, we'd all do it in a second, right? Like we'd all be there now. Like, I want to be in union with God now, right? Like, it's like very clear that if we could make that happen, for most of us, it would happen this moment, right? So what we can do, and what we do in centering prayer is just to make ourselves available, just to make the time. And then whatever happens, happens. And does that make sense? It's like, I used to try very hard not to think for many years. And I can tell you that doesn't work, and that's not even the goal of centering prayer. It's not the goal, and there's a beautiful paper we have for you that Father's going to give out, where you can grab in the end. It's not the goal to have a blank mind, to have an empty mind, or anything like that. Yeah. The goal is to let go into God's presence within us. And we can't make that happen. So it's kind of a paradox. It's an oxymoron in a certain way. Like many things are, so, yeah. So when I notice that I'm trying or that I'm judging, that I'm like, I'm thinking way too many thoughts or something. Like, why am I thinking so much or something? Like, it's like I just gently say my word. Right? And it doesn't matter if I say it 20,000 times in these 20 minutes. Yeah, I just let go.
One other way just to offer the kind of the way I think about this is centering prayer in a sense is letting go of the lesser good for the greater good. So if something beautiful happens or a positive thought, it's a good thing. And I let go of the thought for God, God's self. For God himself. Does that make sense? Thomas Aquinas at the end of his life, right? The angelic doctor, the greatest theologian in the history of the Catholic Church. I think few would argue with that. Loved his mind, loved his writing, loved everything. Our whole church is squarely founded upon Thomas Aquinas' brilliant mind and his insights about God. And in his last moments, what did he say? Anybody remember? Yes. Yes, Father.
It's all strong.
It's all straw. Every brilliant thing I've written pales. Was he saying everything he wrote was bad or evil? No, not at all. He was saying everything I wrote and channeled and received and became a conduit of God's grace, all of that brilliance compared to the vision of God himself is nothing. That's that when I'm talking about the gap between, and that's a little bit of what we're doing here, is I trade everything for God himself. I give you this time, God, whatever comes in my mind, whatever grace, whatever challenge, I trade it for you yourself. Again, it's a cultivation, it's a practice.
So a few things, the paper, and if you're online, that was emailed to you that explains a little bit more of centering prayer. Please go to the contemplativeoutreach.org website. There's way more information there, like there's beautiful quotes and scriptures and like just explanations that we can't all do in this 1 hour that we have, right? And also there's a beautiful app, where's my phone? It's called the Centering Prayer app that you can get on your phone, which is awesome. It's lots of like pre-prayers and post-prayers, and you can set your own timing, like from 1 minute to 40 minutes, however long you want to sit, and it has a lovely bell to start, a lovely bell to end, and that really we use this every day as our way to time ourselves, right? So it's just simply called the Centering Prayer app. It's free, and it also gives you instructions and inspiration, and so. Prayers, lots of Father Keating. Next time we tell you of some books that we love, so if you're interested and you want to know more, there's so much material out there, so much support, so much resources. So that's it for David. Yes?
Using the same word for 12 years?
I have.
Okay.
Yes. Have you?
No, I just want to repeat it for those folks. The question was if Britta used the same word for 12 years, and she has, and I haven't. No, I trade my word out frequently, but you had the same one, and I don't know what it is. It's between her and God.
Yeah, I mean, actually, it used to be 2 syllables. I went it down in the last year, 2 months ago. But it was the same. I was just like, that's kind of my, and I even use it now, like during the day. It's just when I'm uptight, when I notice that I'm getting tense and I'm getting like my will, like my will be done kind of thing. It's like this word just comes out all the time because it's so in my system, So that's me, and then Lee changes it. So either way is fine. but
Yeah.
one thing, you do not want to change it during the sensory period. That's really important. Once you can change it tomorrow, but today, because then your mind goes, I don't think that word is right. I think I should have a different word. But who comes up with that kind of word? Or maybe somebody, that her word is probably much better than my word. So then focus goes on about the word, right? And you miss the 5 minutes just ruminating if you have the right word. So just stay. All minds are very tricky. You haven't noticed that yet. They latch onto anything but silence. So you stay with that word at least for this period. You can always change it tomorrow.
So please do grab a paper that Father we can hand out, and the paper's got some resources a little deeper into the theory and practice and what it is and what it's not. We didn't have time to get into tonight. And we'll be back next week and for the next 3 weeks. And those of you at home on Zoom, I know we have a little technical issue with some of the breakout rooms, but we will sort that out next week to make sure you're all able to get into the breakout room. And again, our invitation is practice, you're welcome. Practice daily, and we'll see you back here in a week. Right? In a week. God bless you. Have a good week.
Bye-bye.
Bye.